A deadly weekend on Lake Michigan has torn one family apart. A 27-year-old woman died Saturday after she fell off a boat. Her mother told our Charday Gray this is a tragic reminder of the importance of life jackets.
One moment she was celebrating on a luxury yacht, the next she was gone forever. No warning, no chance to say goodbye, just the cold, dark waters of Lake Michigan closing over her head as friends screamed her name into the night. Zahari Walls, known to her A-list clients as Z-Money, was at the top of her game. At just 27, this Chicago-born hairstylist had built an empire with her bare hands, transforming celebrities and rappers with her magic touch. Her Instagram showcased her work on stars like Mellow Bucks Zez, Fendi DeRappa, and Dreezy. Her appointment book was so packed that she'd sometimes handle a dozen clients in a single day, jetting between cities to meet demand. Taking a day off? That wasn't in Zahri's vocabulary. Which makes what happened on June 21, 2025, all the more tragic. The one time she decided to let loose, a spontaneous decision to join friends on a yacht during Chicago's Black Yacht Weekend, would be her last. The questions haunt everyone who knew her. How does a healthy young woman simply fall from a yacht and disappear? Why couldn't she be saved? And what really happened in those final moments before she went overboard? The water tells no tales, but the circumstances surrounding Zahri's death, the crowded boats, the dangerous weather conditions, the delayed emergency response, paint a picture more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Welcome to our channel, where we dig deeper than the headlines to uncover the truth behind the tragedies that shake our communities. If you've ever lost someone unexpectedly, drop a comments below. Zahari's story might seem like a freak accident at first glance, but by the end of this video, you'll see why her death was anything but random and why it could have been prevented. Chicago's West Side isn't known for producing glamorous success stories. It's tough, it's real, it's a place where dreams often get crushed before they have a chance to take flight. But Zahrie Walls wasn't about to let her environment dictate her future. Born and raised in these streets, Zahri showed signs of exceptional talent early on. While other kids were figuring out what they wanted to be, Zahri was already becoming it, experimenting with hair, creating styles that made her friends look like they'd stepped out of magazines. Her mother, Zahrie Walls, saw that spark and encouraged it, even when money was tight. He was always sweet but bold, recalls a childhood friend who grew up with Zahri. Even back then, she had this vision for herself that seemed almost impossible, but that girl was determined. That determination would become Zahri's trademark. While details about her formal education remain scarce in public records, what's crystal clear is that Zahri was a student of her craft. She absorbed techniques, practiced relentlessly, and built her skills one client at a time. The transformation from Zahari Walls to Z-Money didn't happen overnight. It was built on countless late nights, early mornings, and the kind of hustle that most people can't sustain for a week, let alone years. But Zahri wasn't most people. By her mid-20s, Zahri had cultivated a client list that read like a who's who of Chicago's music scene. Mellow Bucks trusted her with her image. Fendi DeRappa wouldn't let anyone else touch her hair before performances. Dreezy became not just a client but a friend, who promoted Zahri's work to her massive following. Z-Money wasn't just doing hair, explains a music producer who worked with several of her clients. She was creating personas. When artists needed to reinvent themselves or make a statement with a new look for an album drop, they called Zahri. She understood the power of image in the industry. What separated Zahri from other talented stylists wasn't just skill, it was her work ethic. According to her mother, Zahri routinely handled 10 to 12 appointments a day. Let that sink in. Most stylists consider 5 or 6 clients a full day's work. Zahri was doubling that, often traveling between cities to meet her clients' needs. She didn't go out much because she worked all the time, her mother told reporters after the tragedy, traveling to different cities, always on the move for her clients. That rare weekend off that ended in tragedy, it was so out of character that her mother described it as spur of the moment, a spontaneous break from Zahrie's relentless schedule. But Zahrie wasn't just building a client list. She was building an empire. By 27, she had opened her own salon, becoming not just a stylist but a business owner who provided opportunities for others. She had begun investing privately, showing the kind of financial savvy that suggested she was thinking long-term. On her Instagram bio, she proudly listed private investor alongside celebrity stylist, titles she had earned through sheer force of will. Her social media presence reflected her growing influence. While never reaching mega-influencer status with millions of followers, Zahrie's accounts showcased her work with authenticity that resonated with aspiring stylists and clients alike. She wasn't just posting finished looks, she was sharing techniques, celebrating her clients' successes, and documenting her journey from West Side dreamer to beauty industry force. Friends described her as a powerhouse who had built her own self and was her own entity in Chicago. In an industry where many talents get exploited or burn out, Zahrie maintained control of her narrative and her business. She wasn't just surviving in the beauty industry, she was thriving on her own terms. What makes her story all the more powerful is that Zahrie did this without shortcuts. No wealthy parents, no industry connections handed to her on a silver platter, no viral moment that catapulted her to overnight fame. Just raw talent, extraordinary discipline, and the kind of ambition that couldn't be contained by circumstances. This was Zahrie Walls, self-made, respected, on the rise, until a single day in June 2025 brought it all crashing down. Black Yacht Weekend isn't just any gathering on Lake Michigan, it's an event that transforms Chicago's waterfront each summer, bringing together hundreds of boats and thousands of revelers for what's supposed to be the ultimate celebration of summer, success, and community. Started as a small gathering of black boat owners years ago, it had grown into a major annual happening with official ticketed events and unofficial meetups spreading across the lake. June 2025 marked one of the biggest Black Yacht weekends yet. Social media was buzzing with promotional videos, outfit plans, and excitement weeks before the event. For many attendees, it represented a chance to network, celebrate, and enjoy the luxury lifestyle that hard work had earned them. For Zahrie Walls, it represented something much simpler, a rare day off. "She called me that morning," recalls one of Zahrie's closest friends who asked to remain anonymous. She wasn't even planning to go out. She had rescheduled a client for later that afternoon. Then some friends called and convinced her to join them just for a few hours. Said she deserved to enjoy the sunshine for once. That spontaneous decision, so out of character for the workaholic stylist, would change everything. The weather that Saturday started beautifully. Clear skies, temperatures in the high 80s, perfect conditions for being on the water. But meteorological reports from that day tell a different story beneath the surface. Wind speeds had been increasing throughout the morning, with gusts reaching 25 miles per hour by early afternoon. The National Weather Service had noted concerns about offshore winds creating dangerous conditions on the lake. Lake Michigan isn't just any body of water. It's massive, unpredictable, and deadly when underestimated. Unlike swimming pools or small lakes, its conditions can change dramatically within minutes. Those familiar with the Great Lakes know their power. Those who aren't often learn too late. The epicenter of Black Yacht Weekend was an area known as the Playpen, a popular party spot near Navy Pier where boats anchor close together, creating a floating festival atmosphere. By noon on June 21st, the Playpen was packed with vessels ranging from modest speedboats to multi-million-dollar yachts. Music blasted across the water, drinks flowed freely, the party was in full swing. According to friends, Zahrie arrived at the marina around 1 p.m. She wore a white bikini top with gold accents and matching bottoms, an outfit later identified in the missing persons report. Her hair was styled in long braids, and she carried a small waterproof bag with her phone and essentials. Photos from that day show her smiling, looking relaxed, For perhaps the first time in months, the yacht she boarded wasn't officially part of the Black Yacht Weekend event, but was drawn to the area by the festivities. Owned by an acquaintance of one of Zahrie's friends, the 52-foot vessel had about 15 people on board, a mix of friends and friends of friends, creating that peculiar social dynamic where not everyone knows each other well. What happened between boarding at 1 p.m. and the emergency call at 5:30 p.m. remains partially obscured. We know the yacht joined the floating party at the playpen. We know drinks were served. We know the wind continued to pick up throughout the afternoon, causing increasingly rough conditions that had some smaller boats heading back to shore. We also know something that adds a disturbing layer to this tragedy. Zahari Walls was close friends with Kenneka Jenkins, another young woman from Chicago whose mysterious death in 2017 captured national attention. Jenkins was found dead in a hotel freezer after a party, with circumstances that many found suspicious. The two women had grown up in the same neighborhood, and Zahari had reportedly been deeply affected by her friend's death. She was always careful after what happened to Kenneka, says a mutual friend of both women. It made her more cautious about partying, more aware of her surroundings. That's part of why this doesn't make sense to so many of us who knew her. By 4 p.m., conditions on the lake had deteriorated significantly. The wind had shifted, creating stronger currents and choppier waters. Several smaller vessels had already returned to harbor, but the yacht carrying Zahari remained in the playpen, now bobbing more violently with each passing wave. What exactly happened in the next 90 minutes would determine whether Zahrie Walls lived or died. The decisions made, or not made, by those around her would prove crucial. The safety measures in place, or lacking, would be scrutinized in the aftermath. But before we get to those final moments, I want to ask you, have you ever found yourself in a dangerous situation on the water? Maybe you underestimated the conditions, or perhaps you witnessed a close call? Tell us your story in the comments below. Your experience might help others recognize the warning signs before it's too late. By late afternoon on June 21, 2025, Lake Michigan had transformed from a playground to a potential death trap. The beautiful day that had drawn thousands to the water was showing its darker side. Wind gusts now consistently topped 30 mph, creating whitecaps across the surface and pushing boats dangerously close to one another in the playpen. Coast Guard radio transmissions from that afternoon tell a story of mounting chaos. The first distress call came in, a small boat taking on water near Monroe Harbor. Within the hour, 3 more emergency calls had been logged. Chicago's emergency response teams were being stretched thin across the lakefront. "It was getting bad out there," recalls a Harbor Patrol officer who worked that day. "We kept telling people to head back in, but you know how it is. Nobody wants to be the first to call it quits. Everyone thinks they can handle it until they can't." On the yacht carrying Zahari, witnesses later reported increasing concern among some passengers. The vessel, despite its size, was being tossed around more violently as the afternoon progressed. Drinks spilled, people stumbled. What had started as carefree dancing was becoming a challenge in balance. A woman who was on board, and requested anonymity for this story, described the scene. "People were starting to talk about heading back in, but others were still having fun, saying the waves made it more exciting. The music was still blasting. It was hard to hear people talking, hard to notice if someone was worried." According to multiple accounts, Zahari had been enjoying herself, but wasn't heavily drinking. Several witnesses described her as fully in control and having fun but not wild. She had been taking photos, dancing with friends, and texting with clients about upcoming appointments, still working even on her day off. The exact moment and circumstances of Zahrie going overboard remain the most contested part of this tragedy. Here's what we know for certain. People on the yacht began shouting that someone was in the water. The music stopped. Chaos erupted. What happened in the minutes before that alarm was raised? This is where accounts diverge. Some witnesses claim Zahrie was at the rear of the boat, possibly taking photos or getting some air. When a particularly violent wave hit the vessel, the yacht pitched dramatically, and she lost her balance, falling backward into the churning water. Others suggest she may have been sitting on the railing a common but dangerous practice on boats, and simply slipped when the boat rocked unexpectedly. A third theory, supported by at least 2 witnesses, indicates she may have been moving from one part of the yacht to another when the boat suddenly lurched, sending her over the side before anyone could react. What no one reported seeing was any kind of horseplay, pushing, or foul play. By all accounts, Zahari's fall was a tragic accident, the result of rough conditions, a party atmosphere, and perhaps a lack of safety awareness that is all too common on recreational boats. The response to her fall was immediate but chaotic. Multiple people saw her go into the water. Witnesses report she surfaced once, appearing stunned but conscious, approximately 10 feet from the boat. Someone threw a life ring, but in the choppy conditions it landed several feet away from her. She was trying to swim toward the boat, said one witness, but the current was pushing her away faster than she could swim. You could see the panic on her face when she realized she was being pulled away. Another witness described how quickly the situation deteriorated. One second she was there, struggling but fighting, then a wave crashed over her, and when the water settled, we couldn't see her anymore. It happened so fast. The yacht's captain immediately radioed for help and maneuvered to try to reach Zahari, but the same wind and currents that had pulled her away made it difficult to position the large vessel effectively. Precious minutes ticked by. The emergency call reached an already overwhelmed response system. At the exact time Zahir went overboard, emergency teams were responding to 2 other water incidents, a capsized kayak near Montrose Harbor and a child who had been swept off a breakwall further north. The first emergency vessel reached the area 12 minutes after Zahari went into the water. Those 12 minutes, in the cold, rough waters of Lake Michigan, would prove fatal. Chicago Fire Department divers located Zahari. She was unresponsive, having been underwater for several minutes. CPR began immediately on the rescue boat as it raced toward shore. The ambulance carrying Zahari reached Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Emergency room doctors continued resuscitation efforts, but the combination of cold water, possible impact trauma from the fall, and extended time without oxygen had taken its toll. Less than an hour after falling from the yacht, Zahari Walls was pronounced dead. News of her death spread through the Black Yacht Weekend participants like a shockwave. Boats began returning to harbor en masse. The celebration was over, replaced by stunned silence and tears. As Zahri's body lay in the hospital, her phone, recovered from her waterproof bag on the yacht, continued to receive appointment requests and messages from clients, unaware that their stylist would never again transform them with her magic touch. The official cause of death would later be listed as drowning, with contributing factors of hypothermia and possible head trauma from either the fall or contact with the boat. A toxicology report showed minimal alcohol in her system, well below the legal limit, and no drugs. On the surface, it appeared to be a tragic accident, a perfect storm of bad weather, bad timing, and bad luck that claimed the life of a rising star. The kind of freak occurrence that reminds us all how fragile life can be. But something about this story doesn't add up. In the days following Zahari's death, questions began to surface, not just about what happened on that yacht, but about what didn't happen. Chicago Marine Police launched an investigation that quickly identified troubling safety lapses. None of the 15 passengers had been wearing life jackets. While not legally required for adults, the rough conditions that day would have warranted such precautions. The yacht's captain, who had only recently purchased the vessel, admitted to investigators that he had never conducted a safety briefing for his passengers. "We're looking at potential negligence charges," the lead detective stated. "When you take responsibility for people on your boat, you take responsibility for their safety." Tragically, Zahari wasn't the only victim claimed by Lake Michigan that weekend. 2 other drownings occurred: a 19-year-old man who jumped from a pier near Loyola Beach, and a 34-year-old woman who fell from a smaller boat in Burnham Harbor. 3 deaths in one weekend represented the deadliest stretch on Chicago's waters in over a decade. The community response to Zahri's death was immediate and overwhelming. A balloon release memorial at Montrose Beach drew hundreds of mourners, including many of her clients, who spoke of her impact on their lives and careers. "Zahari wasn't just my stylist, she was my confidence," said rapper Mellow Buck Zez, fighting back tears. "Every time I stepped on stage looking fire, that was Zahri's work. I don't know how to process that she's gone." Social media became a virtual memorial, with tributes pouring in from across the beauty and entertainment industries. Fendi Darapa posted a series of photos with Zahri, writing, "You made me feel beautiful when I couldn't see it myself. Rest in power, Queen." Dreezy shared a video of Zahri working on her hair, captioning it simply, "My heart is broken, love you forever, Z." The official Black Yacht Weekend organizers released a brief statement expressing condolences but distancing themselves from the incident, noting that the yacht involved wasn't officially registered with their event. Within days, they had deleted all social media content related to the 2025 gathering, a move that drew criticism from many who felt it represented an attempt to avoid association with the tragedy. For Kizzy Wells, Zahri's mother, the investigation and public response were secondary to her overwhelming grief. In her only public statement, delivered through family attorney James Montgomery, she expressed both sorrow and anger. "My daughter worked herself to the bone building something beautiful," the statement read. "She finally takes one day for herself, and now she's gone. I want answers. I want accountability. Most of all, I want my baby back, and that's the one thing I can never have." As Zahri's salon remained closed, a makeshift memorial grew outside its doors. Flowers, candles, photos, and handwritten notes from clients whose lives she had touched. Many left business cards with personal messages, a fitting tribute to a woman whose own business card had become a coveted symbol of success in Chicago's beauty world. The investigation continues, but for those who loved Zahrie Walls, no findings will ever fill the void left by her absence. The death of Zahrie Walls wasn't caused by a single factor, but by a cascade of circumstances that together proved fatal. Understanding these elements is crucial to preventing similar tragedies. What we see in cases like this is a perfect storm of risk factors, explains Dr. Elaine Richardson, an emergency physician who specializes in drowning prevention. Environmental conditions, lack of safety equipment, delayed response, and often a false sense of security on larger vessels all contribute. Lake Michigan, like all Great Lakes, presents unique dangers that even experienced boaters sometimes underestimate. Unlike oceans, these massive inland seas can develop dangerous conditions rapidly, with waves building quickly and currents forming that rival those of coastal waters. The Great Lakes are fresh water, which means less buoyancy than salt water, notes Coast Guard Captain Derek Johnson. People don't float as easily, and the cold water temperatures, even in summer, can trigger cold shock response, which incapacitates even strong swimmers within minutes. Simple measures could have potentially saved Zahri's life. Accessible life jackets for all passengers. A designated spotter watching when people are near railings. Lower music volume to ensure distress calls can be heard. A safety briefing before departure. Earlier decision to return to harbor when conditions worsened. Zahari's case follows patterns seen in other drownings. The Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project has documented over 1,100 drownings in the Great Lakes since 2010, with many sharing similar characteristics: rough conditions, lack of life jackets, and delayed recognition that someone is in trouble. "People don't drown the way they do in movies," explains Bob Pratt, executive director of the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project. "There's rarely screaming or waving. It's often silent, quick, and happens right in front of others who don't recognize the signs." For anyone heading out on the water, remember these critical safety points. 1. Always wear a life jacket, not just have one nearby. 2. Check weather conditions before and during your outing. 3. Designate a sober water watcher when people are swimming. 4. Learn to recognize the signs of drowning. Head tilted back, mouth at water level, arms pressing down. 5. If caught in a current, float on your back and conserve energy rather than fighting it. Zahrie Walls' death was preventable. The beauty she brought to the world was extinguished too soon by circumstances that, with proper precautions, need not have been fatal. Tag someone who needs to hear this safety message you might save their life. If you found this video informative, please subscribe to our channel for more content that educates and keeps you informed on safety-related matter just like this one.